A lot has been said about how Amorim outcoached Slot, but it was about how Slot coached into Amorim. This is what I mean. Slot's tactics fitted right into United's formation and what United wanted to do. The first strange thing about Slot's tactics was the setup of his midfield. We know United struggle in midfield, whether it's individual decision making or centre-backs not stepping out to match up, but Slot's tactics help United out a lot. Here, we can see Liverpool's midfield formation. Gravenberch is so deep, he is in front of United's forward line, taking away any advantage of having the extra midfield player, with Liverpool essentially creating a 2v2 against United's 2-6s. And even when McAllister and Szoboszlai pushed up onto United's defensive line, they just stood on defenders. No depth here, no movement into pockets to try and disrupt United's defensive formation. Again, Gravenberch gets on the ball in front of United's forward line. That evens out the numbers against United's 6s. And to be honest, no one cares about Kerkez because he is playing so poorly. And Liverpool go backwards. But compare that Liverpool midfield setup against United last season, where Liverpool's midfield was tighter, which enabled better combinations and rotations. Granted, this was against Ten Hag's United, but with Van Dijk in the centre of that back three possession setup, Gravenberch was allowed to push on and overload United's midfield. He positions himself on the outside of Mainu gets attracted, and Liverpool break that midfield line. This was at Anfield last season against Amorim, and we see the same tight setup, which has disrupted United's defensive formation. The positions of McAllister and Gravenberch have pulled Mainu and Ugarte out, leaving Jones free, and they get the ball into him. These two examples showed how their midfield floated about last season, where on Sunday they stood and waited. But despite the early festive gifts from Liverpool, United's execution of their defensive structure was excellent. This was a common sight in the game. United's back five, with Mount and Mbeumo dropping back in to create a 4 in front. But United weren't passive with this setup. If a square ball was played, they were prepared to step up and put pressure on the ball. Gravenberch plays the ball to Van Dijk, and Mbeumo steps up to put pressure on him. Van Dijk plays it back, and Fernandes puts pressure on Gravenberch. But despite the pockets behind, United have Liverpool's front line lined up. Gravenberch plays it out to Bradley, who is pressurised by Mount, and United force Liverpool back here. At first glance, this is exactly what Liverpool want. United drawn up the pitch, stretched out, creating pockets, and we can see Kerkez in one of them. But as the ball gets to Kerkez, De Ligt has stepped right out of the defensive line, and he forces Kerkez to kick the ball out, and United win the ball back. This example I really liked. Casemiro knows he is cutting off the passing angle into McAllister, but is ready to shoot out to Gravenberch if the ball goes into him. Gravenberch moved away from Casemiro to get on the ball. Fernandes shoots up to put pressure on him, potentially opening this path into Szoboszlai. But Casemiro just tucks back in, with Mbeumo now cutting off the passing angle into McAllister. United were clearly well drilled and coordinated. In this last example, Gravenberch pushes on and United look overloaded, but the distances between the back five and midfield four are very tight. So even if Liverpool were able to get into this pocket, United can react, and we saw Palace do this against Liverpool. Palace employed the same defensive formation, and maybe Amorim took from this. As this move progresses, it looks like Szoboszlai has found a pocket. Van Dijk plays it in, but Szoboszlai is immediately swamped by Palace, and they win the ball back. This example shows what would have happened if United lacked discipline for big parts of the game. Here, Casemiro is too preoccupied by Gravenberch, and he opens the path into Szoboszlai. Casemiro can tell from Konaté's body position that he is looking into a pocket behind him. Casemiro scans, he tries to get back across, but Liverpool break that line. But to be fair, this rarely happened. The other aspect of Slot's suspect tactics was using their fullbacks to defend our wing-backs, which caused them massive issues. Dalot is on the ball, with Bradley shutting him down. That has dog-legged Liverpool's back line, opening this pocket on the outside of Konaté. And we can see Gravenberch trying to get back, and Konaté get across. Again, Dalot is on the ball, with Bradley closing him down. As the ball gets into Cunha, look at where Gravenberch has ended up to plug the gap Bradley vacated. And look at the disjointedness of Liverpool's backline. It's a delight to see. On the other side, when Kerkez was stepping up onto Ahmad, Van Dijk was left having to come across to Mbeumo, and he clearly wasn't comfortable doing that. As Ahmad plays the ball into Mbeumo, we can see Van Dijk backing off, where Konaté stepped up onto Mount. This is a long ball from Lamons. As the ball gets to Mbeumo, with Kerkez on Ahmad, we can see how far Van Dijk came across to deal with that, creating this massive gap between him and Konate. In this example, Ahmad and Mbeumo have rotated. Kerkez is now on Mbeumo and he has his arm out to Van Dijk to take Cunha. But Van Dijk doesn't want to be out there. Cunha gets on the ball in space, now Van Dijk reacts. This is another ball played into the right channel, and we can see how isolated Van Dijk is with Kerkez tracking Ahmad. And finally, Ahmad has just played the ball down the line, and we can again see how far across Van Dijk is to plug the gap created by Kerkez defending Ahmad. There was always going to be a domino effect to this deficiency, and this was it in the lead up to Fernandes' chance. Although Van Dijk is in a more conventional position, the back four is still stretched and fragmented. Because of this, Gravenberch and McAllister are head down trying to plug gaps. That left Gakpo tracking Fernandes, and he just lets him go, giving him a free shot in the box. Despite Slot's tactical deficiencies, United's exploitation of them was very good. Compare that to how City defended United's wing-backs. Essentially, they used their forward line to defend United's wing-backs to maintain defensive solidity in their back four. In this example, Mazraoui and Ahmad have rotated, but we can see Doku has got back to take Ahmad in the wing-back position, with O'Reilly holding his left-back position. If this was Liverpool, Doku would be up the pitch and O'Reilly would be on Ahmad, opening this pocket. In this example, we can see Silva back in the right-back position, ready to defend Dorgu, which has allowed City's backline to remain tight and organised. This example was the most interesting. Despite Mazraoui getting away, O'Reilly doesn't get tempted to step up, because the space in front of him is not as dangerous as the space behind him, so he holds his ground and Doku has to get back. The devil's verdict is, Arnie slot machine went from Vegas jackpot to Barry Island penny slots. It was as though his coaching team created a plan to allow United to impose their formation on them. We have to be realistic that Liverpool's tactics aided United significantly, and as such, we can't say for certain if this is a turning point for Amorim long term. But looking at this performance in isolation, it has to be regarded as Amorim's best. But what the future holds, time will tell. When United have had big results in the past, despite the euphoria, I stood my ground that they were false dawns, and I've been proven right every time. Is this another false dawn? Probably. But in the past, we have been a no-man team. We are now a four-man team. The performances of Mount, Cunha, Mbeumo and De Ligt have held this team together. My opinion is, De Ligt has been our player of the season so far. It's a shame that hasn't been recognised, but Slabhead gets his moment. But that's United. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.